Hello, hello, hello.
Thank you for listening to Carlie's Couch. We're back. You're back. Everything's good.
All good.
Last week we had a really good conversation around visualization. I need to visualize saying that damn word. It is hard though.
It is. I tripped up a couple times.
Do be like, you
can hear it on these new mics
too. Last week we spoke on visualization, and this week is not intentionally like a part two, but it kind of feels like a little bit of a part two because, you know, today we're going to talk about how to create a new future. And part of that has to include visualizing what that is. And so hopefully you did those activities, listen to that convo. If not, listen to the last episode, or listen to it after you listen to this one, which is fine by itself as well. But Carlie, do you believe that your thoughts are predictors of your future?
Absolutely. I think that our thoughts, because they're in our head all day and it's like the soundtrack of our lives and how we approach opportunities and relationships and careers and everything pretty much that we do, I think it starts with thoughts. And so those very much write the story of our future.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you've said this before in the past one where 90% of your thoughts are ones you've already thought before, which means that most of the time you're on automatic in the way that you react to things and, you know, your first thought when you see something or hear something. But that means like if you're having those same thoughts, they're leading to the same emotions and the same feelings. And then that leads to the same actions. So those thoughts have to change first for those actions to really stick.
Absolutely. And if every time I go to the gym, all I think about is how I'm not where I am, how I don't see results, like it becomes such a negative experience that it makes me not want to go, makes me want to spend less time there. I might not exert as much energy. Like, so even if you're still like taking those actions, if you don't change your thought process, like it can very much affect those end results because it affects your whole, it like shapes your entire experience, like while you're there.
Yeah. So in the last episode, we talked about, you know, what does your future look like, or visualizing what you want and how you want to feel. And so this week we have an episode. This week we have an exercise for you about what you see in your new future. And so if you did that exercise last week where you started journaling or started writing down your visualizations or know what that looks like, that's fine. And I remember I was like, oh, I already did this for this episode. So for those who heard the last one, this was my kind of visualization. So what I did was I took like 30 seconds to a minute and just thought and visualized my new future, what I see and how do things feel. And then I wrote down what my new future looks like. And so right now we want you to pause. And not if you're like, you know, doing something else, but pause or come back to thinking about that. Think about what does my new future look like that I want to get to, and writing those things down and then coming back to us. Okay. So pause, come back. I was about to, for the people who didn't pause, was like, man, forget them. We're going to just give you some wavy music and now we're back. Okay. We didn't need to do that. It was better.
I was about to do the Jeopardy music, so that's way better.
Come on, man. We got to get more creative than that. So I asked Carlie to do this as well. Do you feel comfortable reading your paper out loud?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to have Carlie read her paper out loud to her answer of, you know, what is her new future.
And so I did ask Alexia a clarifying question. I was like, so you just want me to write about my new future? She was like, yeah, like what you like want it to look like, what it can look like. And in the context of this conversation, in my head, it's like I'm writing, if I'm able to, you know, change my thoughts, and what will that future look like? So because she mentioned that 90% of our thoughts are the same ones, and I think it's over 75 to 80% of those that are negative. So if we're able to change that, like what can this future look like? So I wrote love, abundance, opportunities, freedom, being able to move how I need to, when I want to, friends and a partner who love and support me, who appreciate me, challenge me, and strengthen me, my own space, a team that grows together, fulfilled, motivate. I write a lot. Fulfilled, free, motivated. I feel confident. I feel direct. I am walking in my power. I am moving from a place of love. I feel in flow. I am resilient and able to overcome any obstacle that comes my way. I feel gratitude. I feel growth. I feel an ease of self. And I'm in flow because of my self-growth and non-attachment. I am walking in who I am with intention.
Okay. And then I'm going to read mine. Mine says, what is my new future? Abundance, rest, having what I need, open home space, helping others. It feels effortless, enjoying travel and new experiences, acknowledgement, respect, love, cared for. People want to make me feel special. I feel special. I have money. I create. I inspire creation. I'm open. My family knows me. I can provide for others, resources and opportunity, great health, strength, youthful, energetic, calm, and at peace. So actually, isn't it interesting how similar that sounds?
Yeah.
And from yours, a couple of things that stuck out the most were free and like freedom, because you said that a few times, but also kind of some things that sounded like assertive, like being more assertive in different spaces too. So one thing that I didn't read now, and I wrote this on April 12th. So since then, and this is in my book where I write my goals every day, but since then I kind of started looking at this first before I write my goals. So since then I can look back and now say, okay, one of the things I had down that said, don't work so hard. And now per our last conversation, and you know, when I saw that, I noticed how everything else was in the positive except trying to get away from this working hard. So I'll kind of come back around to that, but that's what mine said. So now looking at these things that you wrote, Carlie, on your paper, which of those things can you look at and see like immediately that you're going against them? So that's my example. So like if I say I want rest and to not work so hard, then I should stop being so hyped about that I work so much, or I should go to sleep and get rest instead of staying up. And so I'm saying I want a future where I get plenty of rest. I feel well rested and I'm not working so hard. And yet every day I'm doing the opposite of that. And so things like that, for example, show you where, okay, I'm not even like lined up for that. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you see with yours?
Looking at it, I think the one that kind of stands out to me right now is like being able to move like how I need to, when I need to, like when I want to. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, well, I want to do that, but I don't have, you know, the funds to do those things right now. And I just noticed that, like that's in misalignment. I don't know if that's
read what the thing says.
Being able to move how I need to, when I need to, and when I want to.
Don't
like
you
in the
though?
way that I want to.
Do you?
I mean, I think.
But
so
are you going
outside
against that?
I don't think I'm going against that. I just
Then
don't think I'm fully able to do it the way I want to, because you know what I'm saying, stacking bread right now. So I don't think that's going against it. I don't know if I have anything that is actually going against. Like all of these things pretty much are in alignment with what I feel like I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I kind of want you to read them again, but I know everybody's like,
I can't. I'll be quick.
Go.
I'll be quick. I won't like double
just
read
because I want to remember it without being like all in your paper.
Yeah, because she is looking over here.
I know. I can't read it.
And my handwriting.
All I see is freedom.
Freedom.
To freedom.
These new mics got us
Barbs.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that out.
Abundance, opportunities, freedom, being able to move how I need to, when I need to, when I want to, friends and a partner who love and support me, appreciate me, challenge me, and strengthen me, my own space, a team that grows together, where we like build into each other's goals, fulfilled, free, motivated, feel confident, direct, walking in my power, moving from a place of love. I feel flow, resilience, able to overcome anything that comes my way. Gratitude, growth, ease of self, and I'm in flow because of my self-growth and non-attachment, and I'm walking in who I am. Okay. I don't think that anything goes against it, but I notice I struggle with non-attachment. I struggle with non-attachment. Like I said nothing that I think in my journal or like from this exercise, I don't think I'm doing anything that goes directly against it or that's conflicting. But like I just notice areas of struggle. Like I struggle with non-attachment.
So you know, looking at that list, which ones you you really believe more than others?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, non-attachment, that's enlightenment. But I just noticed like that's the layers that I'm working really hard to peel back every day. But that's the thing that I probably struggle with the most on this entire list.
Yeah, but when you look at your list, or with me, when I look at my list, it says, what is my new future? But I have all of these things almost. Some I can if I just see it that way. So, like, all of these things are pretty much a go.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, if you did the visualization in the last episode, look at it now and kind of think more about it. Or if you have over the past few days, or if you just did this exercise, look at the things that you listed out and see what you're directly going against, like every day. Like if you're talking about, for example, with money, if you're talking about, I can take care of myself, or I'm self-sufficient, or I have money, you're not going against it because you don't have it. You're going against it because you're watching 5 hours of Netflix every day. So that's what I mean by that. Like you're saying you want, you know what I mean? You're saying you want to create, but you're just on your laptop all day. So things like that, like you're not really being honest, and you're not really in that space because you don't really want to create. You want to feel secure, or you want to be busy, or you want to whatever, or work hard. Like I said, I don't want to do. So that's what I mean by that.
Now that you say that, I'm thinking about abundance. So I want to like flow from a place of abundance in everything that I do. I say that I want to move with abundance in every area of my life, including financially, and to be able to invest in my business and my friends' businesses and do the things that I need to do. But if I'm operating from a mentality of lack, like of not having it, of being scared to let it go, then that goes against me being able to do it.
But in what ways do you feel you are operating from a place of lack?
I was thinking about pricing this workshop that I'm doing with a friend, and him and I got into a discussion. So it's funny because I had a discussion with a friend before, and they were like, you know, you really need to price for your worth, and because you struggle with that. And this was like a few days before I'd even talked to the person I'm working on the conference with, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Like I know that. Like I know, blah blah blah. So fast forward till I'm talking to my homie.
You always know till you got throw that price out there.
God dang it! Until I'm talking to my homie, he was like, all right, so how much we gonna price this for? And I get on my soapbox of how I started doing the work that I do so people could have access. And it's how could we price this at this point if, you know, it's a pandemic and they might not have money and they do all this. And he was like, I'm going to stop you right there. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you're moving from a limited mindset. You're moving from a mindset of lack right now. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, do you think you're working in like your purpose? And I was like, yeah. He's like, do you not have experience doing these things? Yes. Then why aren't you pricing it? Well, because he's like, so you think that the universe isn't going to provide people who have money to allow you to do this? He's like, don't you volunteer every weekend? Like, don't you have time? So he just really challenged me on this mindset where I was like, I can't price it this high, partially because I am worried about people having access, but that's also a limiting mindset. And then partially because I'm kind of scared to charge that much money. So yeah, that's a very
because
long
you're worried that it won't be worth that much money, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, like what if it's not? And so that's a mentality of lack and moving from a place of like not having it as opposed to like me walking in purpose and being confident that I'm in alignment and flow and all these things.
And is that reflective like in other places as well where you can see the same type of thing?
A few.
So how do we go? Because that's and same for me, right? Like anytime it kind of feels like you're kind of forcing something or having like a slight struggle, it's most likely coming from a place of lack or worth with you or with myself, if you really whittle it down. And so now, how do we become this new future? What's different now? Now that you're seeing that, you're kind of like aware of it. Now what's different? How do you get to the next space? Because we're always talking about what we see and like, you know, I'm abundant and generous and all these things. And so, but now you're like, wait, I got called out that I'm not. So now what?
I think so, because knowing actually doesn't change anything. Like people talk about like, well, if you know, that's the first step. But like scientifically it's shown that even if you know you have biases, that doesn't mean anything. You're not going to change them. You're not actually going to do anything. And so for me, it's the first step. Half of the first step is knowing, but then I've been journaling on it and praying about it and thinking about it every day and kind of trying to figure out like what the root of it is. Like I know a lot of that stems from my childhood and growing up not having a lot of things. But there's a lot of other roots. And so every day I've just been kind of doing work and thinking about conversations and where this insidious thought could be seeping into other areas of my life. Mm-hmm. And so self-awareness, I guess, is the next, like, so self-awareness, it's the same thing as knowing. And then I've been journaling about it a lot. I meditated on it the other day. Probably going to talk to my therapist about it soon. But just trying to be active and aware in how it's affecting all of these areas of my life so I can slowly start to change that thought process. And I think that starts with knowing like where it comes from.
Yeah, but once you know where it comes from, now what? Because you're still kind of just harping on the fact that it's there.
Yeah. So I think if I recognize that the fruit of this root of like, you know, growing up not having anything and being scared to ask for more because what if people don't have it or what if I don't have it or whatever comes from that, like I know that that's where it comes from. I can kind of confront it. And for me, like confronting it is a big deal. Like, no, like Carlie, you don't have to think like that because that is something that happened in your past. Like you made it through it. And then presenting all of the contrary evidence like in my brain. So for example, specifically thinking of this conference, I'm like, man, I can't charge this much because I don't have this. Well, actually, you know, you went to business school, you have an MBA, you did this, you've been an entrepreneur for 3 years and had your own company. You've been doing consulting on all these things and start kind of challenging those thoughts with present evidence for me. Helps me start to break down like those roots that it has in my head.
But even as you say that though, it's still interesting to me because you're still trying to prove that you're worth it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're still trying to make a list to be like, I can do this because of what things. And sure, like, that makes sense, right? Like, in general, like, I mean, minus the president of the United States, but, like, to actually have background in what you're doing to be successful with it. But at the same time, what if we could cut all that out and just be like, it should be this much because that, like, that's how much
it is.
Yeah, or like that's just how much you want to make, or that's where you want to take it, or that's the challenge that you want to set to, like, you know, do a conference at this level, and you're doing that because of the impact that will have, and et cetera, but like still not trying to have some kind of like check off for it. But I think that is interesting because the more I feel like we really feel like we know ourselves, but it's like the more we dig into these types of things, like, and it seems like the last couple of weeks, like I've had so many random flashbacks to like things as a kid that I'm like, damn, I have not thought about that for years, 30 years. And like kind of all of a sudden clicking in place, like why, to your point, like how those things have affected me at this time. So now when you visualize, like what can you really be practicing? I think that in that case, you can practice, being in a space. I feel like I've done this before, actually. I've practiced and visualized walking into meetings and like saying some crazy numbers or being just really confident. And that has helped actually over time. But what are some things that you can visualize now specifically like to make that something where your first thought doesn't come to, oh, that's too much. Like when you're talking about money.
So specifically, my friend and I who are doing this conference, we actually visualize every time we do a meeting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we do breath work, and then we'll visualize, and it's visualizing that we get more people than what our number is, that we have great responses, that they want to pay that they are asking if we have more courses. They are asking us, well, good. Can we buy this book from y'all? Like, are y'all writing a book or paying to fly us out to come speak and to come teach whoever it is? And so we've been doing that every single time. And I noticed the first couple of times, I'm like, yeah, okay, kind of in my head a little bit like, man, that many people. But now I'm like, yeah, that would be fire if it was that many people. And I feel myself start to change.
I think you made a real good point in how I notice even with you saying that, like your expressions change and your feelings change when you say, we want 5,000 people to be there, versus when you're like, man, that would be fire. Like, I wonder how that's going to happen. And if we approach things in the same with, what is it that we said in the last episode? Oh, like more clients, things like that, right? Like if you have your goals of what you want and who you want to be, it's like, oh man, I wonder how that's going to happen. Like, and feeling excitement around it, because I think that, again, going to our last episode, it's that you can be visualizing, but you're really visualizing the negative. If you're saying, we're going to have 5,000 people there, but you don't believe that.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to find the right way to say it to make you feel good. And I think you can notice what you say or how you say things to make you feel good, and now keeping those thoughts more so to the forefront, or remembering to bring those thoughts back up later.
Agreed. And I think it's also just staying open to how things can happen, and open to the possibilities. So even the mindset shift from, man, I don't think we could get 5,000 clients to, that would be really awesome. Like from it changing from a negative into a possibility. Mm-hmm. Like I think that's the first shift that I noticed in my thinking.
Yeah. And then, so you talked about recognizing your past, and we've talked about that in different ways, and knowing where things come from, recognizing that that's not where you have to be stuck in the stories, blah blah blah. So stripping that away is essentially what needs to happen in order to step into that new future. So what does it look like to strip your identity, or like what you're considering your identity? Like, I'm a workaholic, or I'm a busy person, or, what you identify with. I'm a caring person. I care about my community. I care about all this access, things like that, right? But there are other things I think that also can be holding you back with that. So how does stripping your identity work?
Because we are the writers of our own life stories, and you can write yourself however you want to, a victim, a hero, whatever. And sometimes it depends on the day. Like sometimes you are the hero in your story, and sometimes you're the villain, and sometimes you're the victim, and all of that. But I think that it's recognizing that we have that power to write our own narrative and to own our own narratives. And that, for me, that's like a huge shift, is realizing that really is on me at the end of the day. Like no matter what happened with anybody else, like I'm picking these labels to own and to describe myself. Like I'm owning my past. I'm letting that define me, as opposed to just choosing like who I am in that moment. And so it allows you to own your power.
Yeah, I agree. I think it allows you to own your power. And I think that if you can really stop and say, I'm not that. And for me, I don't know how to explain what type of person it is. Probably like apathetic. There's probably a better word, but I'm kind of like just chill a lot of times, because also I'm not even really like that excited about the huge things, because like it's gonna be $1 million. Like, the same way this might be $100. And so I also kind of am like, it's no big deal. And I also kind of think of myself as like, in this whole grand scheme of the world, like, I'm not that important. And not to be like, I'm nobody, not like necessarily like that, but ego wise, I'm not that important. Like, and I'm stressing over things that like aren't that important. And so to think about stripping your identity and stripping those past stories, it's like, now what do I have? If I don't have this story that I need to crave attention, or I need to do this to get this, or, I don't want people to leave me or whatever. If I'm cutting away that story, then like, what am I replacing it with? What's there now? And I thought about Game of Thrones and Arya, when, she was doing that going through that religion, and, her always having to say like, a girl has no name, a girl is no one, a girl has no name. And I thought about that. I was like, man, what does that really like mean for you in real life, to like think about that? And what do you think? Like, to be like, oh, like I'm nobody. I'm not. To me, that almost makes it easier to now fill that space, instead of, even though I'm not saying, oh, I'm a millionaire, but to say, man, I'm nobody. Also, like, I really don't feel the past. I'm just like, now I'm here now is how I feel.
As I say, I think it frees us from our expectation and our needs and everything in that moment. Like maybe even once, like if I am if I am no longer defined by my past and by the things that happened to me and by these traumas, if I just let go of like my need to, be this person in the community and do all this stuff, like I'm kind of free to just be who I am. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. It makes me think a lot about in mindfulness and meditation, when they talk about when you start to realize that you're the watcher, like the seat of awareness, as opposed to the things that are happening to you. And it allows you just to be free and actually be present in that moment. Like if I stop telling myself like, man, I'm the person who always fucks up or who always does this, then I just get to be a person in the moment.
I agree with that. And it clears you, right? So like I feel like if you have more of a clear space, and now we need to know what do we want to be? What do I want to do instead? Who do I want to be, right? Like she could be anybody. Like this is literally like becoming a new person, because you can't be the same thoughts. You can't say like, oh man, I wish I woke up every day and like nothing changes. Even if you're setting your alarm or whatever, even if you're getting up, like nothing's changing with you feeling like that's such an important thing, or like coming from that place of like, this thing matters so much. And so to strip that away of, all of those things that don't matter, you now have to become that other person. And so to go that direction, now you've already done the work of envisioning your new future. So you have that visualization. We've talked about that before, what that can look like and how you can make sure you say that in a way that is pushing you forward towards that. And so now you remind yourself of that in that time. So, if I'm finding myself like frustrated or come from a place of lack or whatever, kind of can do an ego, like clear that and come from a different space. Like, no, what do I want to be right now? Or who am I right now? Or who am I going to be? That's the question. Like you kind of ask yourself every day in the mirror, like, who am I going to be today?
You know what that makes me think of? Preston. Shout out to Hero P.
Yeah.
When he was on if y'all have not watched Preston Dawson's episode, you should go back and watch it. I think it was like 54 or something like that, 45. But it was really dope. He was just saying like he had this moment where he realized he wasn't who he wants to be. And so he made Hero P. And so every day he kind of checks like his thoughts and decisions and actions. Yeah. Like, is this in alignment? Like,
it's like, what would Hero P do?
Yeah, what would Hero P do? Like if Hero P has his body and lives his lifestyle and has these type of like gigs going on and all this, like, are these the same thoughts that he has? Like, are these in alignment with his goals? And I think that, that's a great self-check. Like, so, you have this vision, like, are the thoughts that you're thinking, are the things that you're doing, is how you're moving in alignment with this new future that you envision for yourself?
Yeah, and being that person means thinking like that person, giving like that person, charging like that person, just all of those things. And so it's really that has to come first before the actions, to make it stick and to make it make sense.
Absolutely. You just got to be that person.
You just got to be the person. But even still, like, saying that, it just sounds crazy, right?
Yes.
You just got to be that person. But so then I'll skip to my story, though, too. Because as I didn't even think of this story until I was kind of thinking about this episode. And I was like, oh, this has happened, because I wanted to think about it. What examples do I have where all of a sudden, I feel like it always feels like it's, all of a sudden, like, I am different. But it's because you haven't been thinking about it anymore, because you've just been doing it, if that makes sense. So I wrote down that it had just hit me that I no longer have a problem like at all with waking up early. And I know if I listen to my old episodes, like all the time, it's all I ever thought about was like, man, I don't get up. And it literally was my biggest like gripe every day. Like every day I was disappointed when I woke up in the morning. Every day. I would literally be hitting snooze, feeling disappointed, but then it would like spiral me kind of into that. And then it's weird because I don't know how I stopped thinking about why it's so hard to get up. But what happened was I'm an agency director and I have employees and I have clients and I have a meeting at 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 10 and 12. And I get up because I'm an agency director. I get up because I'm a business owner. And I get up because I have things to get done. And I get up because I need time to do what I want to do before I start working. And I don't think about it anymore. And I literally get up at like 5:30 automatically now, like every single day, no problem. And when I don't, or if I don't, then I don't really care, because it doesn't matter, because this is the life that I signed up for, and that I get plenty of rest. So I rest till I feel good, and then I get up and I do what I want to do, and then in the evening I usually go to bed early anyway. But I had to act like this person. Like, what does this person act like? And do it. And I don't think I wrote down anything. I wasn't like to be a successful entrepreneur, like, what do I have to be? I just looked at my responsibilities and like it just clicked. Like, it's hard to explain.
It is, but I think that's a great example. I also will throw in just with the waking up thing. Whenever I first started working at the gym a few years ago, they were like, "Oh, how do you feel about being a 5 a.m. person?" I was like, "I am not a 5 a.m. trainer. Like, I will never open the gym." Man, if I don't get my ass up and open the gym and or teach online classes super early now, because that's just what I have to do. Like if it's in alignment, if that's it, I don't complain. Like the other day I had to wake up at 4 so I could be somewhere at 5 to get ready to teach a class online because it's Central and Eastern time. It wasn't a big deal. Like I didn't be, and I also, like you said, I kind of let go of the need of having to quote unquote be a morning person or to be that person that wakes up at 5. I wake up and I do what I got to do. And it just kind of is.
Yeah, I am a morning person though. And
same.
So in the way that the visualization kind of plays into this and also helped me, I would say, is that as I'm going through my day and like hiring people or in a meeting or doing things, I'm in this space. I'm in this space of being this person, and I've been there. And so it's not like the waking up doesn't feel like a chore. The waking up is part of it. Because I know how it feels. Like I feel like, you know, I have 4 buildings across the U.S. right now. And so now I'm in the journey of it. I think that we think the journey starts when you get the result. And what we're showing with how we think and how we feel is that we can be there in the space to be in the journey. Like the journey doesn't start until you get in the space, into the headspace. Not once you get the abs, then like that's when it pops. Not when you get the $1 million, I'm going to feel a certain way. If you're trying to be something different or new because this is going to improve or this is going to make me better, this is going to make me feel better, I don't want to feel this way, then that's where you're waiting for something instead of getting in that space and now you're there. And now it's part of the journey.
Yeah.
And this is what we kind of talked about with the last episode, which is why I was like, oh, it's kind of going to bleed a little bit. But I hope it's all still kind of like connecting all the dots.
I think it builds. Like it starts with visualizing and even thinking about what you want to be or who you want to be. And then this is allowing you to get to that space.
Yeah, you can't wait for that thing to be happening. And or you can't even look. And that's why I'm like, if you look at your list, like none of this stuff is stuff that you have to wait for, or for me that I have to wait for. But your goals, so for example, like we can talk about what the difference is with that. If you have goals of making a certain amount, if you have goals of being a certain size, whatever that those things may be, I think all of that is valid. But again, to bring it back down to what your future looks like, meaning what your present looks like, is, you know, what do you think is going to be different? What was one of yours so we can use an example?
Like,
what's something that you want, or like what's a goal or something in your future?
I, in my head, you know, have never been around good romantic relationships. And so it's something that I struggle with, like making sure I'm always moving from a place of love and not coming from triggers or trauma or whatever. But it's like I could be here and struggle with all of these things and always second guess and worry about it. Or I could just move from a place of love. And even when I don't necessarily respond, quote unquote, ideally, or what like Hero C, shout out to Hero P, would look like, that I have enough grace and growth and understanding in myself to know like that's okay and to just try again. So instead of letting it be this heavy like boulder that I carry around all day because maybe I came at somebody a little bit sideways because I was triggered in a conversation, now I can be like, well, charge that to the game. Like, you know, I can do better next time, and then aim to be more thoughtful and take that pause before I respond next time. And so it's just kind of doing it. Yeah, it's just practicing and doing it. And so even with being more confident, like I said, each time, you know, my homie and I who are doing this conference visualize together, it starts to feel more possible. It starts to feel more real. But at the end of the day, the only thing I can do is actually put out the price that I think that I'm worth and value. And like that is just the action of me doing it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think it's interesting how it's hard to like pinpoint the moment of change and the moment of being different, again, because you became that person and then you realize that that thing was there.
Yeah, and it is much more peaceful. And I think it's that moment like when you go from trying to doing, you know, people are like, man, I'm trying to do better. Yeah. And you're just doing better. And there's not like a scientific method. Unless y'all have one, please share that with us. But
there is. I mean, if you go into like meditation for change and really like whether you do self-hypnosis or inductions or.
Well, I mean, in the sense that like, I don't think it's like, okay, well, you do 3 days of meditation, 3 days of yoga, 3 days of this, and all of a sudden you're enlightened. That's what I mean. I think it's different. And I think a lot of it is our owning our agency to choose and to be that person and to move from that place. Like, that's not something that anything can make us do. Like, that's a personal choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I think it's cool to like think about that and know like, you know, we can be these people. We don't have to be defined by these things. Like, we don't have to hold on to all of that stuff we think we have to hold on to.
And I feel like in my life personally, like everything has perpetuated and just to a more calmer place and like I said, calm and peaceful place, and a place that feels like it's less effort across the board because I'm not like trying to struggle against everything so much.
Yeah, you're just allowing it to flow.
To be in flow.
Synchronicity.
Yeah, so think about like what your new future looks like, and you know, kind of breaking down like, so what is that person doing? Like what am I doing? Your future is gonna look like what you're doing today, and so it's those little things that you start to do differently, change, and then you become like in that space. And like once you're in that space, it feels good and you keep doing it and it all perpetuates. So I definitely encourage you to, you know, think about these topics, journal them out, write some things down, and then look more into also thoughts, feelings, how they change. So I'm sure you could probably read something that's more scientific than the way we're talking. But listening, I think, too, for me, to different like podcasts and people speak, like different things click differently, even though it can be kind of the same message. So hopefully something will click for you.
Yeah, and if you want to share any of your new future or maybe some of your like lessons or thoughts during this, I would love to hear it. So at Carlie's Couch, at CC Fierce. If Lex is down, at Lextopia.
And this week, I'm going to shout out two of my clients, Rod Johnson and Pernell Cesar. They are the founders of Black and Bold, BLK and Bold Coffee. And I just want to shout them out because they are small business owners and, you know, really taking off and spreading to Whole Foods, Amazon, Target, Hy-Vees, which are like the Krogers, I think, in the Midwest, and really doing big things and expanding. And you know, it's so funny, like going through growing pains and it's like we ran out of inventory on Amazon or like, you know, different things happening. And it's like, yo, these are good problems. And so kind of seeing the changes that they're going under while also the whole time giving back, which I love. And I love working with people who give back and really care about that. So I just wanted to shout them out for their initiatives, the social impact that they are having every month, giving money back from their product. And all of the praise, the kind of highlight they get like online is well deserved because it's super good product and super impactful. And so I like that, you know, seeing people show that it's not just one thing. It's not just about getting money or it's not just making an impact, but we have to be poor. All of this can go together for you to make the impact and for you to be the person that you want to be.
Shout out to them, all of their initiatives and their amazing coffee. If y'all haven't gotten any, get some. It's so good.
Yeah, it's good.
It's real good. Like, man, I need coffee. But our question of the week is, what are you going to enjoy believing today? Ooh, that's a good question for this episode. What are you going to enjoy believing today?
I am going to enjoy believing that I'm trying to say something besides like just the successful. But maybe that is it. I'm going to enjoy believing in my, I'm going to enjoy believing in my success today.
I like that. I am going to enjoy believing that I am my highest version of myself in this moment.
Good.
No conditions.
Under no conditions. All right, guys. Appreciate you listening. Thanks for tuning in.
I'll let y'all next week.
Peace.